Here's a short video going through 3 dividing in ratio examples, starting with a fairly simple one and then getting more complex for the second and then the third. Many of you may watch this all in one go before you do a task, and that's fine, but do remember that this will be here to come back to if you get stuck with a particular problem. You could watch all of it or maybe just part of it back. The first one is this. You can see Sophie and Tara share 21 sweets in the ratio 2:5. How many they each get? Well, what I like to do with any sharing in a ratio problem, any problem involving things being split up in a ratio, is draw a table so I can sort of visually represent what's going on. It's really important to get the order right. So if it's Sophie and Tara, I must do Sophie first and Tara second. And Sophie gets 2 parts and Tara gets 5 parts. So I'm just going to draw a couple of circles. You could do boxes if you preferred. You could do any shape really, to represent what they're getting. One circle is going to represent each part. Now I have to share out 21 sweets, and I have to share it between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 parts. Ratio is uneven sharing. I'm not going to share it between Sophie and Tara evenly. However, I have to share each part evenly. Tara's going to get more because she's got more parts, but each part, whether it's Sophie's part or Tara's part, must have the same. So I'm going to share my 21 sweets among 7 parts, and as we know, when we share, we divide, meaning each part gets 3 sweets. Now I can see that all together Sophie gets 6 sweets and Tara gets 15 sweets. Might just write that briefly there. Sophie gets 6 sweets. Tara gets 15 sweets. That's that one. I'm going to come on to the next one now. Slightly different, not terribly different though. Ali, Bill and Will share 350 grams of chocolate in the ratio 2:2:3. How much chocolate does each of them get? Well, again, I'm going to draw a table, but obviously this time 2 columns isn't going to suffice. If I wasn't filming, maybe I'd use a ruler on my table to make it look a bit neater. Ali, Bill and Will, the order of the names and the order of the ratio must match, otherwise Ali's going to end up getting more than he should do. 2:2:3, so the first person has to get 2, the second person has to get 2, and the third person has to get 3. The rest of it very, very similar to the previous one. I have to share out 350 grams, and I have 2, 4, 7 parts. So if I share 350 between 7 parts, it gives me 50 for each part. If you had a ratio where there was a really high number of parts in one, you might not draw them all out. You might just sort of use your imagination or write times or something. But for this, I'm going to draw them all out. I can see that Ali gets 100 grams, Bill gets 100 grams, and Will gets 150 grams. Last one we'll look at, slightly more complex. Tamsin and Matt share some Lucozade in the ratio 3:1. Tamsin drinks 585 mils. How much does Matt drink? I'm still going to draw that table, even though it's a bit of a different problem. Having that visual representation is going to make my life easier. T there, M there. Okay, Tamsin gets 3 parts. Matt gets 1. But this time there's another bit of information that can go in my table now, because I know that Tamsin drinks 585 ml. So Tamsin altogether has to be 585. Okay, now I can't share back out between the 4, because the 4 is what represents what they have all together. I don't know what they have all together. However, I do know that Tamsin has 585 mils and Tamsin has 3 parts. So 3 parts must be worth 585 mils. And I could use that to work out what 1 part is. I'm going to use my trusty Casio scientific calculator. If I share my 585 between 3 parts, I can see that it's 195 for each part. Write that calculation down that I've done so my work makes sense. So each part in Tamsin's has 195, and as I said on the video earlier, all of the parts has to be the same. If Tamsin's parts each 195, the Matt's part must also be 195. Matt only has that one part, so he must have 195 mils. Make sure you work through the MyMaths task. And remember, if you're struggling, you can use the MyMaths task, you can use this video, but if you're really struggling, email me.